Cross. That's what it's supposed to. Well, hello and welcome to our Purple Chair Chat. My name is Larissa Whitney and I'm the Education and Prevention Specialist at Jana's campaign. I'm thrilled to have Dallas Haselhorst with me today from TreeTop Security. This Purple Chair Chat in particular will be focusing on National Stalking Awareness Month, which is in January. So together, the two of us will provide some information on what stalking can be like online. Dallas is going to share some insights of the psychological aspects as well. So I'm really interested to hear more about that and learn from him. Purple Chair Chats in particular are live conversations, instilling the knowledge, skills, and values necessary to prevent gender and relationship violence. We use these discussions to raise awareness, engage bystanders, promote healthy and respectful relationships, and encourage the development of new social norms. Before we get going, I do want to mention that we will be discussing some difficult topics regarding gender and relationship violence, and it could be activating. So please do what you need to take care of yourself. We'll also share resources or services. So if you aren't sure who your local advocates are, feel free to reach out to us and we'll do our best to connect you to the right people. There are also multiple resources that I want to make sure I give credit to today. We want to make sure and cite the National Center for Victims of Crime, the U.S. Department of Justice, Spark, CDC, and RAIN.org. Speaking of Spark, the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, while legal definitions of stalking vary depending on jurisdictions, a good working definition of stalking provided by our partners at Spark describes it as a pattern of behavior directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety or the safety of others, or suffer substantial emotional distress. The key points in that definition are pattern of behavior and the fear elements that manifest in many different forms. So Dallas, I'd love to hear more about the realities of stalking online and kind of how that fits into that definition. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So yeah, I have just a brief presentation here, kind of talking about some of those things that you just mentioned. Let me see if we can get this sharing working here. All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. So as I mentioned, basically just stalking in the digital age, the internet age, right, is kind of the gist of it. So a little bit about me. I have been doing this for a long time, cybersecurity and IT. Do a number of things with cybersecurity, including run some businesses that all deal with it as well. So really, when we talk about stalking, and you know, you just mentioned what stalking is to us. A lot of times we go straight to cyber stalking, which is really using technology to do some of those same things, which makes it unfortunately a little bit easier. So technology, you know, used for good, used for bad, obviously. We also have hybrid stalking, which pretty much everything that we deal with and help people on is what we see being used is that has a cyber component, but there's also a traditional component. And so, you know, it kind of goes back to that statistic down at the bottom, which I'm sure most of you are probably aware, 67% of stalking victims do know their stalker. So once again, you know, obviously it can happen anywhere. Cyberbullying can happen anywhere, but a lot of times it's right here, you know, in your locale. So, you know, obviously cyber stalking, we talk a lot about tech. So keep in mind that the, you know, yeah, the bad guys, the they can use a lot of the different technologies and, using malware and viruses and all these things. Most of the time, in the times that we deal with this, it's the same tech that all of us use. It's GPS trackers. I mean, everybody here has used a GPS at some point, whether that's to, find your way home, find where you're eating in a big city, whatever. Internet of Things, which when we're talking about that, you're talking surveillance cameras, you're talking locks, doorbells, things of that nature. So we see where a lot of times the bad guy, the stalker, is actually getting access to those systems, and it's basically provides another means of control. Um, Social media, gaining access to that, even if it's just public data, which we'll talk about here a little bit more. And then obviously, spyware keyloggers, you may say, well, not everyone uses those. Well, I can assure you from an IT perspective, things that monitor keystrokes, view cameras, all of those things, that is 100% in our wheelhouse. So a lot of times the bad guys, the stalkers are using those exact same things, that we're used to using. And once again, just a statistic down there at the bottom that 61% of cyber stalkers are using everyday tools. I would argue in the experiences we've had, it's probably closer to 100%,
Oh,
if
wow.
not 100%. It's very, very common. So, digital stalking, detecting these things, obviously using anti-spyware, antivirus software. Once again, the importance of me saying this is spyware, anti-spyware, antivirus is not going to detect the stuff that is in use. So, somebody has remote access to your computer, which at that point they have remote access to kind of everything. Um, if you run an antivirus scan or if you run an anti-spyware scan, it's not going to detect anything, because it's a legit tool. And so we see this once again. This is very, very common, where somebody has access to, a system and they have up-to-date antivirus and everything else. All their other things are there, but it didn't detect a thing because once again, it's a legit piece of software. Um, so make sure that you're watching out for those things. Also that you're kind of reviewing if you're talking about it like an iPhone or an iPad or a phone of any sorts, make sure that you're reviewing some of those app permissions. Those are once again, just things that we see a lot of. From a spyware perspective, we see a lot of times where apps kind of go to the dark side. That's not necessarily from a stalking perspective, but once again, the permissions is just a good hygiene type thing that we wish everyone would do, really. And I think you have a couple of links and some comments regarding these, right? That you were going to share in the chat.
Yeah, we'll be sharing quite a few resources in the chat, some that you had shared and some that we've collected over the
Perfect.
years. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. And then another one, monitoring online activity, checking your email, checking account logins to make sure that the people that are logging in are you. And that may sound really difficult to do. It is not, but unfortunately, it's different for every single system. But it's pretty common, if whether we're working stalking or cybersecurity wise, for somebody else to gain access to those systems and for us to, I mean, one of the first things we do, there's no point in changing passwords if somebody already has, a trusted device, so to speak, to where they now have access to it. Because if you change a password, it doesn't kick them out. They already have a trusted device there. So once again, very important to be able to look at those things and see if something's going on. As we were talking about beforehand, we see this a lot with ex partners, where somebody still has access to their iPhone or their Apple account or their Android account or something like that. Well, I don't need, if I'm the bad guy, I don't need access to your phone and your messages and whatnot if I have access to that because, you know, iMessages and all of those things can actually sync to computers to where you can actually respond and do other things. So we see that very, very frequently where somebody just doesn't kind of kick out the other person. And so it makes stalking relatively easy in that sense. They don't have to go through any work. They already had access to it. So just some things to keep in mind. Browser extensions, like I said, we run into that a lot from the cybersecurity perspective, but also we've seen it a few times from a stalking perspective. Some other ones, physical inspections, AirTags have become, I call them a stalker's dream, because it's really easy to track somebody and they're relatively inexpensive. Good news is, once again in the chat comments, there's ways to test for these. There's ways to look for these. Now, keep in mind that AirTags are not the only way to do this. So, back in the day, you used to see where people were putting GPS trackers or things like that on cars and everything else. Now you don't have to. I mean, that's what AirTags and Tile and some of those other devices for tracking are good for. So definitely just some different things that um, maybe not necessarily all great ways to detect it, but definitely things that you should be aware of because people are using them. Social media audits, making sure who your followers, friends are. Um, Something we tell a lot in our cybersecurity awareness training is that if you don't feel comfortable walking up to every single stranger you meet in the street and telling them that, hey, I'm going on vacation next week. Hey, I'm not going to be at my home. I'm going to be over at this place later today. If you're not comfortable doing that, you should probably look at some of your social media settings, because that's exactly what you're doing when you go and you check in at, you know, whatever place you're going to or the restaurant or something like that. You're basically telling people, "Hey, I'm not home." So
Mhm.
just some things to really think about. And like I said, if you're not comfortable walking down the street and telling every stranger, you probably need to really revisit some of those privacy settings. So once again, good hygiene, not just from an anti-stalking perspective, but really for just general life.
Yeah.
Um, do you have something to say on that, or?
Well, I think it ties in perfectly with some of the conversations that we have when we do presentations. I know a lot of the teens for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month coming up next month. We talk a lot with teens about the social media aspect, and
Mhm,
I mean they can pretty much rattle off, oh yeah, Life 360, all those
mhm,
apps where you can check in, even social media like TikTok, Instagram, if you're checking in.
mhm.
So it's always good to review that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, people change friends. People change friends more than they change underwear sometimes. So, you really have to look at, is this person really a friend? Do I want to give them access to all of this data and all of this information? Because, the further outside your circle someone gets, the more likely they are to share that with somebody else that you don't want to know that.
Yeah.
So psychological warfare, this is one, it's probably not in in a lot of the anti-stalking stuff, but we see it frequently, which is, you know, the victims really, they don't know where to go. So that's number one. But then you have a lot of technical know-how maybe on the stalker side and not as much technical know-how on the person being stalked side. And so what ends up happening is they almost use that as more of a like another way to really weigh on them. So they might have had access to the iPhone and all that stuff, and we helped them actually get out of that. We kicked them out of those systems, out of those accounts and everything else. And still, for weeks, months later, they'll come back and say they said that they knew what I was going to be doing tonight, and it's like they don't. They're just wanting to exert that control over you. So that's something that it's tough every time we deal with it, and every time we hear that, it's really, really tough. Um, and kind of going, whoops, back to some of the things that we talked about up here is, it kind of ends up being almost a spiral, kind of out of control, where the person feels like they're more and more isolated from everything else, including family, including friends. So they just start second guessing like everything that they do, and I do mean everything that they do. So like I said, it's really rough for us to try and, we're not psychologists or psychiatrists or anything else. We're, here to help from a technical perspective. So it's just, yeah, there's a lot to it. But like I said, that's probably one of the tougher things for us to work with folks on, just because we see it in almost every case. The other thing I had mentioned is, um, there's a male there, there's a female on that screen, and that was done very intentionally. Um, I'm not going to say 50-50. It's a lot closer than one might think, that, out of all of these things, including the technical know-how, we see it kind of going both directions. So I know you had a few hotlines and some other resources, so just want to plug those in there for your chat as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you mentioned that it can happen to anyone.
Hmm.
We talk about that extensively because I think there is a misconception that a person wishing to cause harm, the misconception is that it's violence against
Physical.
women,
Yep.
but we know that that's not true.
Yeah, psychological is 100%. Like I said, it goes both ways. Obviously, we don't deal with stalking and battering and things like that. We hear tangential, but that's not our primary focus. It's primarily like the cyber stalking side, and I can assure you, it is. In our world, like I said, it's not probably 50-50, but it's really close. If it's 60-40, I wouldn't be surprised.
Mhm.
Um, so some other things, just talking about security awareness, best practices, good hygiene from a cybersecurity perspective. Make sure that you're using different passwords. And once again, this is just to make sure that whoever has access doesn't have access to everything that you have, your email and all of those things. Different passwords, or, changing from default passwords. That's especially important on like surveillance cameras and some of those things, just to make sure that, that's not a way that somebody else is going to try and control them. Two-factor authentication, updating devices regularly, phishing emails, rebooting devices on a regular basis, encrypting your data, and if you're going, gosh, dang, that's like a lot of jargon you just threw at me, and there's no way that one slide actually covers all of that. Well, you're right. Um, we actually have, so TreeTop's well known for our cybersecurity awareness training. We're on about our 10th or 11th revision of it. We started back in 2019, and it's been downloaded literally all over the world. So all of these things, that I'm referencing, as far as, ways that you should be protecting yourself and your data, is 100% covered in a 50-minute plus, video and worksheets and everything else. So you can start thinking about your digital life and ways that you are better securing it. And then this just talks about our cybersecurity awareness training, gets downloaded a ton all over the place. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had. You only gave me 10 minutes.
Apologize for that.
No,
I
no
will
worries.
certainly be accessing some of those resources to learn more because we talk about this so much. So I appreciate that you shared that. And we'll make sure and type those in the comments as well. In addition to those resources, Jana's campaign also has some Awareness Month toolkits. If you go under our website under community education, for those that are interested in incorporating conversations about stalking into their communities, there's toolkits there. And speaking of awareness, if you want to mark your calendars, for January 18th, they, the Spark group that I referenced, they're going to do a Sparkle Against Stalking event. So they're encouraging folks to wear their best sparkly outfit. I believe that's a Saturday, right? So that will be exciting. Um, Thank you again so much, Dallas. I appreciate that you took the time to join, and we appreciate the work that you're doing. I learned a lot, and it certainly ties in well with the prevention efforts that um, we discussed. So I appreciate it. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
yeah, thanks for having me. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach back out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks again.
Bye.